Today we're going to start our new unit in time, which is so exciting. I love the time unit. It's really fun. Before we jump into it, I just want to know, what do you already know about telling time, or what do you already know about clocks? Looking for scholars with raised hands.
Giving a point to Edward, his hand shut up right away.
Jalea. Go ahead, Jalea.
One thing that I know about time is that there's an hour and
There's an hour hand. Great job. There is an hour hand. What else do we know? Looking for one more scholar. What else do we already know about telling time or clocks?
Go with David. Go ahead, David.
I also know that there's a minute hand.
Great, so you already know about the hour and minute hand. Great job. All right, so when we tell
I
time,
also know that.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, David. All right, so oh. Go ahead, David. All right. I think David's frozen, right? Or am I frozen?
I'm gonna mute him.
No, you're not frozen.
Okay, great. All right, so just like we measure lengths of things using inches or centimeters, and just like we count money using quarters or using cents and dollars, when we measure time, we use units as well. We use units such as years, months, days, hours, and minutes. So to start us off, we're gonna watch a Brain Pop video. So I'm gonna share my screen with you. The Brain Pop video is all about time. I want you to pay attention and think, what new things are you learning about time or clocks? Let me start by sharing the screen. All right, give me a thumbs up if you could see the Brain Pop screen. Great job.
What you reading? You can't actually read a clock, Moby. Well, a clock doesn't tell you much of a story. It tells you the time. A clock doesn't actually talk. It just, well, what is a clock? I know that a clock is a tool that we use to measure time, just like we use tools to measure height. All clocks measure the same time, even if they look really different. This is the type of clock we have in our classroom, and I have my own clock in my bedroom, and there's a clock in our living room. Oh yeah, and Grandpa has a clock on his arm. A watch. I guess clocks can tell time in different ways. Well, Grandpa's watch is digital, and the time is written out in numbers. And Mr. Patchouli says the clock in our classroom is analog. You have to figure out the time by looking at the face. What is the face of a clock? The face of a clock is the part with the numbers on it. Like on this clock, the face is the white part. There are 12 numbers that go around the face of a clock. Just like there are 12 inches on a ruler or 12 months in a year. The 12 is always on the top, and the 6 is always on the bottom. But the face and numbers don't tell time by themselves. What do the hands on the clock do? The hands are the part of the clock that point to the numbers. I know they aren't really hands. That's just what they're called. The little hand is called the hour hand because it shows the hour. And the big hand is called the minute hand because it shows the minutes. While the minute hand goes all the way around the clock, the hour hand moves from one number to the next. So the hour hand moves slower than the minute hand. And the hands always move in one direction. It's called clockwise. No, the hands never go backwards. That's called counterclockwise. But check it out, Moby. There are clocks everywhere. I guess people need clocks to know the time. But why is time so important? Every morning, my alarm clock wakes me up for school. Come on, Moby, it's time to wake up. We don't want to be late. I know the bus comes at 8 o'clock, so we have to make sure we're at the bus stop before it comes. I guess time is important because we use it to plan the day. Moby, it's not time for lunch yet. There are a lot of times to remember, like our school starts at 8:30. Oh, and we have music at 2 o'clock. And I know the most important time of all, free time.
All right, so why is telling time super important for everybody? Why is it important that we keep track of time? Looking for somebody who's raising their hand. Go ahead, Deborah. Why is telling time important?
Telling time is important so we could know when we're doing stuff and when we're not doing stuff in different orders of the day.
Great job. If we didn't tell time, or if we didn't keep track of time, we would be late for school, or we would be late to come onto our Zoom call, and then we would miss out on learning. Great job. So we're going to take a look at a clock. I have it in front of me right now. Let me share my screen.
Ariani getting a point for perfectly folded hands.
Elian also point for his beautiful scholar the whole time.
So was Fanta, Muhammad, and Amin.
Ooh, great job, guys. All right, so in front of me, I have an analog clock. And from the video, we learned that the analog clock has an hour hand and a minute hand. The minute hand moves quicker than the hour hand. And the hour hand changes from each number each time the minute hand makes one circle around the clock. That's because a minute goes by faster than an hour does. We're going to go through a PowerPoint now, and we're going to think, is the clock on the PowerPoint an analog clock or a digital clock? A digital clock has digits or numbers, and it's separated by 2 dots, which are called a colon. Let me go ahead and share my PowerPoint. All right, thumbs up if you can see my PowerPoint. Great. So this is a digital clock. I know because I see only numbers, which are separated by 2 dots. On the left side of the 2 dots, or the colon, represents the hour. So this would be 4 o'clock. The right side represents the minutes. All right, now I'm gonna look at another clock, and I'm gonna think to myself, is this an analog clock or a digital clock? I wanna think, do I see just digits, or do I see hands and numbers? I see hands and numbers. I see an hour hand and a minute hand. This tells me that this is an analog clock. I'm looking for somebody to help me with the next one right now. Looking for scholars who looks their best.
Let's go to Adriel.
All right, Adriel, is this an analog clock or a digital clock?
A digital clock
How do you know it's a digital clock?
because it doesn't have no hands.
It doesn't have any hands. What does it have? Who can add on to what Adriel said? How do we know this is a digital clock? Great job, Adriel.
Andre?
We know it's not a digital. We know it's not a. We know it's not a.
Why is that a digital clock?
Analog?
We know it's a digital clock.
Mhm.
We know it's
Sorry.
not an analog clock
Great.
because
We know it's not an analog clock because it has the 2 dots in the middle.
So it is a digital clock because it has
Mhm.
numbers. Or digits. Great job, guys. All right, now we're gonna compare and contrast the digital and the analog clock. We're gonna think what makes a clock a digital clock and what makes a clock an analog clock. And we're gonna quickly write it down before we go into breakout rooms. Let me just share my screen.
Make sure that you're sitting up nice and tall so that we can all see you.
Thumbs up if you see my chart.
So not warning, stop jumping.
All right, I'm looking for you to help me know what are characteristics of a digital clock. Go ahead and raise your hand. Looking for volunteers to help me. Jot, how would I know that something is a digital clock?
Sharifa, how do we know it's a digital?
We know it's a digital clock if it has 2 dots.
Great.
Great job, Sharifa, getting a point for participating, as well as Andre and Adrielle. Good job.
10 warning, stop jumping.
How else would we know if a clock is a digital clock?
Josiah, go ahead.
Josiah getting a point for participating too.
Sorry, Josiah, you've jumped from my screen. I can't find you now.
Nice job, Joe.
Oh, got you. Go ahead, Josiah.
We also know it's a digital clock if it don't have hands.
Great job. Awesome job. Looking for somebody else to tell me what is a characteristic of a digital clock.
Need to see those hands up. Oh, Godwill.
That if it has numbers.
Great. Numbers.
Getting a point. Good job.
Or digits. Show me silently if you have a digital clock somewhere in your house. Cool, so a lot of us have digital clocks in our house sometimes. A lot of times if you can have a watch on your hand too, that's digital. Great job. How do you know if a clock is an analog clock? What are characteristics of analog clocks?
Let's go to Nomar. Go ahead, Nomar.
Nomar getting a point.
One characteristic of an analog clock is that it doesn't have numbers.
Does it have numbers on the clock? Are there numbers here?
I mean, it doesn't have dots on it.
Great. It doesn't.
I think Anthony wants to add on. Anthony, did you want to add on to that?
Yes.
Go for it.
I want to add on is that also it has hands.
Great. Who remembers what are the 2 hands that it has? Great job, Anthony.
Getting a point.
O'Neill.
He wants to participate. Ellie looks like he wants to participate.
I know that it's an analog clock. What's the question again?
What do we know about the hands? What are the 2 hands that the analog clock has?
That's an analog clock. It's the minutes and the hours.
Great. Minutes.
Good job, O'Neill, getting a point for participating. Keep it up.
Great
I
job.
think it was Anthony.
I gave Anthony Guerrero a point as well, but O'Neill just answered. Good job.
Great job. Raise your hand if you have an analog clock in your house. Let me see. Who has an analog clock in their house? Well, a lot of us have analog clocks in our house. It's also the clock that we have in our classroom. You remember the white clocks that we have in our classroom? That's an analog clock. So before we break into breakout rooms, I just want to ask one more time, why is telling time so important? What makes it such an important thing to learn in 2nd grade?
Oh, Rachel.
So if we didn't know time, we in the future we would be late for jobs.
Yeah, we would be late for jobs. Who wants to add on to what Rachel said?
Great job, Rach, getting a point.
Rachel, you're so cute.
Kofi, go ahead.
I want to add on is that also if we didn't know the time like if we didn't know the time and it was time for class, we would be late and we would miss time.
Exactly, we would be late for things. So it's super important that we learn how to tell time using both an analog clock and a digital clock.
Great job, Kofi, with the point.
All right, we're gonna break out into our breakout rooms and we're gonna work on independent practice. Listen carefully to what I say before we break out into the rooms. I know some of us do not have the same packet that the teacher is working on.